A somewhat shady operation catches Nintendo's fury, new information about the Switch 2, and also massive Mario news and updates happened this month. And so much more. Although Nintendo might not be pumping out first-party games like they used to in the past, this year still has plenty of stuff to talk about it, and we're going to cover everything you might have missed in the last month. If you are new to the channel, welcome. My name's Acadian and I post weekly Nintendo news and topics. And at the end of every month, I go over all the news you might have missed. So if that's your cup of tea, please consider liking and subscribing. And with all of that out of the way, let's get right into the video. First off, let's talk about the games that released this month. Even though it's written plural, there was only one. That game, of course, being Princess Peach Showtime. There was also a demo available for this game, to which I think was a fantastic idea, except that once the game actually came out, a lot of people pointed out that actually the demo didn't do this game justice. People pointed out that basically the game, or I shouldn't say the game, but the demo demonstrated some of the worst parts of the game, but I mean it also showing the very beginning. And I mean that's what a lot of demos do nowadays, they kind of just let you start off the game so you can keep the progress you made once you buy the whole game. But people were saying that actually once you get deeper into the game, it does get slightly harder, it's not too straightforward, it's nothing, revolutionary either, that's not what I'm saying. But honestly, I think it makes me want to try the game a little bit more. And I'm not exactly sure why, but Nintendo was very secretive on who actually developed this game. But in the end, we discovered that it was made by Goodfeel, which is the same people that made most recently Yoshi's Crafted World. Over on Metacritic, the game received a 74, and honestly, I don't think that's indicative that it's a bad game. Even though the reviews imply that the game is kind of, average, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Not every game has to be a 90 plus score rating for it to be good, you know what I mean? Like, an average game can still be really good. But I think overall, the most exciting part of this game is just seeing Nintendo use other characters in the Mario universe. And it's also encouraging to see that they didn't kind of go the whole Super Princess Peach route either with her. But yeah, either way, let me know down in the comments, have you tried out this game? Now let's talk about some of the new rumors that popped up this month. Right off the bat, PRO keeps his streak going and warns us on Twitter about some potential Mario Day announcements. I mean, with PRO it's not potential announcements, it's impending announcements, but still. Although that we could talk about it right now, I'd like to push it to later and move on to the next section, just because with the PRO leaks, it's like I said, they kind of are always true, and they were true, they also happened, so we'll talk about those in the news section. For now, I'd like to talk about a new rumor that popped up that apparently there is a new Switch 2 game that is allegedly coming to the platform. And that game is none other than Persona 6. Persona is just one of those series where you don't know you care about it until you've actually played a game. And Persona 6 in itself is not actually, announced or revealed or anything like that at all. But the latest release that the franchise has seen is a remake of Persona 3 called Persona 3 Reload. And typically Persona is a PlayStation exclusive, however with Persona 3 Reload they did release on multiple consoles. So it's not really a surprise to me that Persona 6 might be coming to the next console considering the power spike that is supposed to happen. And I think Persona has just become bigger than just PlayStation in itself, and they're at a point where if they want to maximize and make, a bigger dent with sales, they have to move to other consoles as well. Since we're on the topic of Switch 2, let's go right into the Switch 2 rumor roundup. First up, we had Nate the Hate say something on his podcast that was very interesting. He said that some people that he knows that are developing games for the Nintendo Switch 2 have been approached by Nintendo asking for assets. Now, what would these assets be for? Most likely what they're going to be using these for is to create some trailers for the reveal of the Switch 2. Typically these types of companies, when they create trailers for their new consoles, will have, some games playing in the background. Just go look back at the Switch reveal trailer and you'll see that there are some games that we didn't necessarily know about at the time. Mainly the first one that comes to mind is Mario Odyssey. I personally believe that there's still a high probability that we do see what this console is, even though it's not in our hands this year. So hopefully this is true and that we do see what the Switch 2 is soon, because man, it's one of those things where I love talking about Switch 2, don't get me wrong, but it'd be fun to have like one concrete official piece of information to kind of like play with. You know what I mean? Just Nintendo, throw us one bone at least. Now this next rumor for the Switch 2 comes from a leaker that has a shaky track record, and so basically just take it with a grain of salt. Well, I mean, take all of this with a grain of salt, but take it with a big grain of salt for this one. Basically, a leaker by the name of Nash Weedle says that the Switch 2 dev kits have been updated to go one step further. But what does that mean officially? Basically, what most people are speculating is that the DLSS that is, said to be in the Switch 2 is just going to be a bit more potent. Yeah, so nothing too exciting, but also very exciting if it's true. It's weird. Because it's not like a big feature in terms of like the Wii U gamepad or the 3D on the 3DS. It's not like a big gimmick or anything like that, but it's still, really good that we are seeing something maybe, not gimmicky, just something that would be nice to have, you know what I mean? And for the last bit of news in this section, we're going to talk about the potential Switch successor name that everybody's been wondering. Some people have been saying they want it to be called the Super Nintendo Switch, a callback to the Super Nintendo. People like me, I honestly wish it's just, I want it to be just Switch 2. I know it's boring, but it's effective and it gets to the point. But most likely, it won't be either of those, and it's going to be something different. And this quote-unquote leak does point to something different. Recently on YouTube, it was discovered that there was a poll going around asking which of these gaming products would you consider buying. And the options you had were PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Switch Attach, and none of the above. Some people pointed out that this survey was most likely just kind of made with AI and it just kind of spewed whatever it wanted to, and I would be very inclined to believe that. And I don't know, I know there is a counterpoint to this, so I would say that it is such a stupid name they would never do that, the counterpoint being Wii U. But still I don't think it's necessarily the same. If Nintendo is going to go with the Attach name, I think they will be dropping the Switch name, to which I don't think it's a good idea. But who knows, maybe, but I can totally see Nintendo going the Nintendo Attach in the same way that it was the Nintendo Switch, but I don't see them going the Nintendo Switch Attach. Now that we're up to date on the Switch 2 news, let's go right into general Nintendo news. To start things off, let's start off with one of the biggest pieces of news that came out of this month, which is Yuzu versus Nintendo. This topic has been covered up, down, all around, a billion times over by a lot of Nintendo YouTubers, so I won't go very much into detail explaining the situation, but I'll briefly explain what's going on. Essentially, Yuzu is a Nintendo Switch emulator, and a lot of games would come out on the emulator even before games released, and Nintendo had enough of it, and made a cease and desist. Yuzu thought that they were in the right and said, Nintendo, meet me in court. So Nintendo said, sure. They pulled up and squared up, and then Yuzu put their tail between their legs and said, yeah, no, you win, and then they just paid the fine. But not only paid the fine, also gave all their assets back to Nintendo and basically shutting it down. Which begs the question, is Nintendo in the right? I don't know, you're technically asking the wrong person. I graduated from IT, not law. But from my point of view, honestly, if it's a game you can buy in the store, I know it's a mega corporation and I know they're not our friends, but still, if it's a game you can walk into and find at the store, you should buy it from the store. If you can log on and buy it from the eShop, buy it from the eShop if you like digital games better. I think this is a little bit different if they're, not selling a game. So let's say there is a DS game you really want and you decide to kind of pirate it. Well, is it kind of piracy at that point? That Nintendo's not offering you any way to buy it legally, so you're kind of forced into finding it illegally. Some people have been saying that this is a big hit against emulation and the preservation of video games, to which I can totally see their point. But to another point, I feel like a lot of these people pirating these games had zero intention of legally buying the games in the first place, which is kind of unfortunate, but still. I know this whole situation kind of has other emulation groups kind of shaking in their boots a bit because they don't, necessarily have the money to fight Nintendo in court because Nintendo has just, a lot of money to do that. And I personally don't think that this is the last we'll hear of the whole Nintendo versus piracy debacle, but for now, all we can do is wait and see. This next bit of news has had some Pokemon fans absolutely rolling in agony. Essentially, the Pokemon Company has established a new Pokemon Works subsidiaries, and ooh, some fans are not really pleased. People aren't upset that, that they did establish the new Pokemon Works subsidiary. It's where they established the new Pokemon Works subsidiary that has people kind of sad. The office just so happens to be in the same building as Ilka, which is of course the team that worked on Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And even though the Pokemon Company hasn't necessarily come out to say, hey, we are going to be working with Ilka permanently moving forward, I mean, moving into their house kind of does imply that they're probably going to work together again. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out. Next up, we got a very slight announcement from the director of the Legend of Zelda movie. Recently, the director of the movie, Wes Ball, kind of talked about the movie he's working on. There was a few things he mentioned that kind of stuck out. Mainly, he says he wants to fulfill people's greatest desires, and that he wants to give people who want to watch it a chance to escape. And then he elaborates what he meant by escapism. He says he wants to create a world that you are going to say, I want to live in. And then he says it's got to feel like something real, something serious and cool, but fun and whimsical, and that's exactly what The Legend of Zelda is. I personally think this is going to be a fantastic movie, and I've said it from the get-go. I understand that some people would have liked it to be animated, but I think they're, having real actors and stuff could go a long way, especially, I know, appealing to the mainstream media, but that's what movies are for. You know what I mean? I'm personally very excited for the movie, and I can't wait to see the first trailer. Speaking of Zelda, if you're a big fan of Link and figure collecting, Link is getting a new Figma figure for Tears of the Kingdom. Figures are one of those things I keep looking at and thinking they're really cool and kind of wanting to buy them, then I look at the price and say, maybe not. This next segment is another big piece of news. As I mentioned earlier, we did have a lot of big announcements happen on Mario Day being March 10th. First off, we got the release dates and the final cover art for Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. We then got the announcement that Dr. Mario, Mario Golf, and Mario Tennis will be joining the Nintendo Switch Online services. But these next two were big pieces of news for different reasons. First, LEGO announces a new Mario Kart set that will only be available next year. But not only will it only be available next year, we only got the smallest of glimpse this year. And at first glance, it's like, come on Nintendo, who cares? It's literally just Nintendo, just show it to us. But as some people have been pointing out, this new LEGO set for Mario Kart might be part of the marketing scheme for Mario Kart 9/10 or whatever the next Mario Kart's gonna be called. Especially considering we kind of know a new console is coming and Mario Karts typically release earlier in the console's lifespan. And then the next bit of news is a grand total of 0% surprising, but still exciting nonetheless. Basically, Nintendo announced that there is a new Super Mario Bros. Movie in the works, still animated by Illumination, and that it will debut specifically on April 3rd, 2026. And I don't know, I just personally find it a little bit weird that they, one, don't show us anything about this movie, but are also willing to give us a specific date. That's a little weird to me. But what that makes me feel like is that next year we'll most likely be seeing the Legend of Zelda movie, then the year after there's going to be the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2, and then probably in 2027 there could be another new potential movie, and I think going forward Nintendo probably wants to release at least one new movie a year. That is of course just purely speculation on my part, but you let me know in the comments, do you think Nintendo's trying to get one movie out a year? And if they are, do you think it's a good idea? Next up, Nintendo participated at GDC this year, that was just this past weekend. And at the event, officially something we know that happened, we don't necessarily know what's happening behind closed doors, nudge nudge, wink wink, give us Switch 2. But for those who were there, they were able to see a few videos of some cut content from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. But personally, I just kind of find it interesting that I know that, not everything that they brainstorm will come to the final game, but with the amount of content and just variety and wacky ideas, it's weird to think that on top of that, there was even more that just didn't make it to the game. I don't have a personal recording of this, so I don't feel right posting somebody else's recording here, so I'll just put a link in my description if you want to check it out, but yeah, it was kind of cool. And in our last bit of news, on March 3rd, the Switch turned 7 years old, which is so insane to me. This system played such a big role in so many people's lives in the past few years, especially during lockdown. Even myself, I remember all the way back in 2017, I mean, I was 17 at that point, buying the Switch and bringing it to high school. And it's just so weird to think about all the good times you had with it and, lugging that thing around everywhere. Even to this day, I bring it with me when I do work trips and I have to catch a flight. Even though I technically never play it when I'm there. And whatever city I'm at, I just end up going gallivanting around and seeing whatever museum or art gallery might be opened and just taking advantage of a free trip, but I still can't leave it behind. I don't know why. I feel that just kind of speaks volume of how great this system was, that even though I know I'm not going to use it, I just can't help myself. I have to have it with me just in case. And that is all I have for today, so please let me know down in the comments your thought on all of this. And also, there's a new rumor that I could have put in the rumor section, but I held it for here. There's a rumor that in this upcoming month in April, there will be a new Nintendo Direct. Do you think that's gonna happen? Let me know down in the comments. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing and maybe checking out another one of my videos. So yeah, until next time, Wado.